And what that is basically responding to the question sent me, and giving Stoic advice regarding those. So we're going to start now. Now, as some of you know, when I start, I don't see too many of the comments and so on, because what I do is I go straight into the content. And today's question that I've been given, Stoic question, and I'm going to refer to the, obviously I'm going to refer to literature and the Bluestocking group, and I'm going to use some of their ideas about Stoicism, and some of their words and quotes as starting points to answer the question, okay, from a Stoic point of view. So this question is, Kaylee from Birmingham, which is a city in the UK, messaged me and asked, is success all about money? Without it, I obviously can't survive. Without money, she can't survive, as not can any of us. But she doesn't have the drive to be rich. She says, I don't have the drive to be rich. Does this mean I can't be as successful as a 21st century woman if I'm just happy paying the bills and living my life? So what's happening with her, bit of context here, is she's getting pressure from her family. Well, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? You said you'd be doing this. We thought you'd have more money. We thought you would have, achieved X, Y, and Z. And what she's saying is, I don't feel that ambitious, but I do have my content. I do have my creation, the things that I do. She does a little bit of crochet, and she makes figurines and stuff, and she's really happy doing that. And what she's saying is, I feel really bad because I've got all this external pressure all the time from my family to perform, and I'm struggling with that. And today I'm going to use a quote from Elizabeth Montagu to answer this. Elizabeth Montagu was the wealthiest and most influential founder of the Bluestocking group. The Bluestockings, as we know, a small organisation of privileged women. They gathered together from about 1750 onwards to discuss literature and the arts. So Montagu gave female thinkers and creatives the recognition and the financial security they needed, and they struggled to find elsewhere. I mean, this is 1750. So the social expectations of a woman at that time were, you sit in the corner and you do what you're told. And what this Elizabeth Montagu said, she was married, and she was very wealthy in her own right. And she said, well, I want to create this space where actually I'm going to buy this big house in Bath, and actually we are not going to have men going to the dining room for their after dinner cigars and women going to the drawing room for this. What we're going to do is we're just going to have a free space and everyone's going to move in, to each other's area, and we're all going to combine. So she had some intellectual men coming along by invitation only. Love it. And she had intellectual women by invitation only, artists, creators, and they all got together and they said, you know what, we're going to talk about what we want to talk about, and we are so grateful to you, Elizabeth Montagu, because you're funding us to do this. You're giving us the space to do this, and you are giving us the voice. She's actually financially funding them, because obviously as a woman, you wouldn't have any financial independence at that time. You would be completely reliant upon a man, and even if you were born into money, you would then, when you got married, you would lose that money. Your husband would then own that money, would own that property, would own everything. So Elizabeth Montagu is quite a good example, because she advocated for female education at a time when it was seen as unbecoming. And she had this friend called Elizabeth Carter, and Elizabeth Carter translated the Handbook of Epictetus, who was a Stoic philosopher. And this is where the Stoicism comes in, okay? So it all ties in. A Greek Stoic philosopher, okay? And this was an epic endeavour. I mean, to translate from Greek to English, to make it acceptable, to make it accessible to society. These fantastic works, these Stoic works. It was just outstanding what she achieved, and of course, this influenced their thinking on virtue, reason, self-control, and so on. So Elizabeth Montagu said, and I'm relating this to the question, just to go back, the question from Kaylee from Birmingham was, "Hi Fatosh, how are you?" It's lovely to see you. Was to say, right, well, I don't have that drive. This is what Kaylee from Birmingham saying. I don't have the drive to be ambitious, to make loads of money, but I have lots and lots of pressure, external pressure upon me to actually be successful in my parents' and my friends' eyes. And I can't cope with that. And what Elizabeth Montagu said was, quote, "The muses crown virtue when fortune refuses to do it." Okay. The muses crown virtue when fortune refuses to do it. What does that mean? What she's saying there is true lasting recognition and honour come from the realm of art, creativity, intellectual attainment, rather than from fleeting luck or worldly success. Okay. So what Montagu is implying is that while external circumstances might not always favour us, we might not be always fortunate, financially speaking, but those of us who practice virtue, we contribute our inherent to the well-being of others and also creatively to the world. Our inherent worth are acknowledged and celebrated by those who appreciate true excellence. What does that mean? That means if we maintain our virtue, our morals, our values, if we adhere to our core set of what we believe in, our morals and values, and we hold that within our Stoic circle, okay, our inner citadel, then we are successful. That is success. Okay. Bless you, Fatosh. Thank you very much. Bless your heart. So what we're saying is, this is a 21st century dilemma. We're looking at literature and we are finding the answers. Literature is therapy, remember? Okay? So we're going back to that Stoic dichotomy of control. We understand the internal state, our internal peace of mind, okay? Our thoughts, our judgments, our motivations, our desires, our reactions to situations are all within our control. We have direct control over how we choose to think, feel and act. So Kaylee from Birmingham is saying, well, this is affecting me. And what we're saying is, yes, external forces will affect you if you let them. So it's training, it's repetition of acknowledging this is an external force, this is something that I cannot have control over. I need to let it go. I can't control how my parents see me. I can do the best I am to stay as true as I am to myself. I can maintain my interests, my morals and values. I am, Kaylee saying, a creative, right? So I can be true to myself and who I am. And what I can do, what's within my control, is to work really hard at that thing. to really study and be an expert at that thing I'm interested in, regardless of the financial reward. And so many times we find that financial reward then comes. Okay. So going back to the dichotomy of control, we have this inner citadel, and external to that are other people's thoughts and opinions. External to that is the past. External to that is the future. We cannot dictate these things. If we try to dictate those things, that leads to frustration and unhappiness. Now, many of the heroines we have looked at, many of the protagonists in the novels that I read, they are female protagonists for a reason, because they have walked the walk, they have suffered sometimes gross injustice, and they have understood there's nothing I can do about that. In order to survive, I have to hold my head up and I have to keep moving forwards, and I have to not be privy to external events. My emotions cannot be dictated to by what's going on around me. I must stay strong. Jane Eyre is laying in a ditch. She is sleeping outside because she's saying, I would rather do that than subject myself to this situation in which I am forced to be a mistress to a man, even though I love him, be forced to be a mistress to the man that goes beyond my morals and values. That's not what I practice. I'm not about that. I'm not going to do that. So she's saying, even though all that's happening back there at Thornfield, even though it's going to break my heart, I cannot let it destroy me. My will is stronger. Okay, and this is where we are. This is what we're doing with these lives, with my new the Female Stoic podcast, is we are looking at 21st century problems and we're addressing them in respect of literature, and we're using literature as therapy to guide us. Okay, so let's go back to the dichotomy of control. When we're faced with these situations, we have to direct our energy and effort towards improving our inner world. Okay. Our thoughts, we need to be mindful of, and this is where meditation comes in. Our attitudes, our actions. We have a choice. Even at the darkest hour, there are still choices. Be they limited, there are still choices. We practice acceptance of external events. We accept them. We don't have to like them. No one said we have to like them. And no one said we are suppressing our reaction to them. Actually, what we're doing is saying, okay, well, I don't like this, but I am not going to let the world see that. I'm going to retain my inner citadel. I'm going to keep it strong. I'm going to keep that barrier up. I'm going to walk away and I'm going to deal with it in my own safe space. Okay, and this reduces anxiety and stress. We're focusing, we stay razor sharp focus on what we can control. When I was that ill a few weeks ago, I knew I could control what I choose to do. I choose to come and do the live. I'm ill, I choose to do the live anyway. That is within my choice. Is it my choice I'm ill? No. You get up and you keep moving, right? If you focus on what you can control, you minimize worry about things beyond your influence. And you become more capable of handling challenges. It doesn't mean you want the challenge. And it doesn't mean just paint on a smile and everything's going to be fine. It doesn't mean it's fine. It means that you have found a way to deal with it so that you're not suffering. You don't let the chaos in. You're not suffering from internal chaos. Yes, the world is chaos. All right, let's make no mistake about that. But internally, you can have a homeostasis. You can create a level of calm. Now, I know there's some of you out there thinking, well, that's easy enough to say. You know, there are people within my family environment even that are toxic or difficult or attacking me or verbally abusive. Yes, but as long as you're walking, as long as you're breathing, you have the ability to detach yourself. It is possible. There may be moments where it's almost impossible. It's very difficult when somebody's verbally attacking you. It might be a narcissism, you know, and it's coming at you. But when you equip yourself with the tools to recognise the behaviours of others, to recognise your triggers, to understand what your weaknesses are, when that citadel is somebody's chipping away at it, you learn to cut off. And that's the key. Doesn't mean you like it. It doesn't mean you're suppressing anything. It means that you are holding down the fort. Right? So we're aligning our expectations with what we can control. We know there's some things we can't. We avoid those things. And we understand when they're coming that we have to prepare for them. We can't go into it blindly. Oh, it's going to be okay, you know. I know. I mean, imagine, you know, you're Kaylee and she knows that she's got this difficult conversation coming. Oh, they're going to have a go at me again. About why I haven't made this, why I haven't got that much money, why I haven't done that. What am I going to do? And what she has to do is she has to prepare herself. She knows it's coming. She can't hide from it. There is going to be a conversation. So what do? One of the Stoic philosophies is wisdom. You equip yourself with the knowledge on how to handle that. You don't just walk blindly through life expecting everything to be okay, because there are going to be a lot of chaotic, negative influences, and you need to be mindful of those. Right. So this Stoic circle of control teaches us to be masters of our inner selves, mastery of emotion. And why I do this Stoic empowerment for women is because we are used to being beholden to our emotion. We are hardwired to be more empathetic and emotional. Why? Because biologically speaking, we are designed to care, to rear, to listen to the needs of others in order for them to survive. Okay. So of course it's going to be difficult. And of course we need these, we need these tools in place. Okay, so we've got the 4 cardinal virtues of Stoicism. We've got wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance even. Wisdom, the ability to discern between what is good and what is bad. Now, some of that comes from experience, and some of that is an inherent knowledge that, well, if I'm doing something and it's going to affect somebody else negatively, that cannot be good. Okay? So it's about understanding the nature of things, how things grow, how things thrive, and how to destroy things, and avoiding the latter, making sound judgments based on that understanding. Then we've got justice, and this virtue is emphasising fairness, honesty, and treating others with equity, treating them equally as we'd like to be treated ourselves. So this is upholding our moral principles. So, as a successful Stoic, you have to have a really good idea of who you are and what you stand for. You have to work on your morals. You have to work on your core set of morals and values. Virtue number 3, courage. Now, this is not limited to physical bravery. Okay, it's encompassing a mental and emotional strength to face adversity, to face difficult conversations, to face difficult situations. And that ties in with the wisdom. Okay, you're not just going to walk blindly down a dark alley and just hope for the best. You're not going to keep your headphones on and walk around blindly and just imagine that the whole world is, in this kind of simulated reality where everybody just walks around and minds their own business, because that's not reality, is it? So that's tied in with wisdom. But you have to have this strength, this inner strength, to understand, well, first of all, I know I'm not going to put myself in a difficult situation. I'm not going to knowingly, okay, going back to Hayley here, I'm not going to knowingly go into conversations where I'm just inciting this negativity towards me. And the courage to persevere when the conversation gets difficult. Use those skills, use those tools to detach yourself slightly and know, if the worst comes to the worst, I can always step up and I can always just take time out. So really, courage is about standing up for what you believe in, and standing up for yourself, even in the face of fear. Saying, no, I'm scared. I don't want this conversation. It's making me really uncomfortable, but I know I'm going to have to do it, so I need to prepare myself. Again, this is tying in with the wisdom. And then temperance. Temperance is a big one, and I'm going to have to do a few lives just on that. And that's about self-control and moderation. So what that's saying is, and actually I'm going to cover that in my podcast, The Female Stoic, next week. What that's saying is, we understand that just because something's good, it doesn't necessarily mean we have to do a lot of it. Okay. Finding a balance and avoiding extremes. And this is a massive one for 21st century society. Why? Because life is full of extremes. Life is a clickbait jungle. And avoiding that, managing our desires, managing our wants, managing what is easy, and trying to detach ourselves a little bit so that we understand, I can have some of this, but once it goes over, an hour of it, for example, scrolling, that's an hour too long. Now I need to just have a break, because I can feel something changing. I can feel that frustration. I can feel that nervousness. I can feel that irritation. Learning to manage, notice the signs. For example, with me, when I have anxious situations, or when there are so many people for a prolonged period of time, I understand, right, okay, why am I getting frustrated? Why am I feeling like this? It's time to remove myself. That partially comes from experience, but partially learning, know thyself, partially listening to the signs. Okay. Bless your heart, Fatosh. Thank you, my darling. Okay. So the four virtues are interconnected. They're not separate. They're all connected together. And I'm just going to go on now to... Oh, here we go. I'm just going to go on to now my other screen, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this idea of temperance. The idea that having a structure, and for me, for example, with these lives, knowing that the live's coming, knowing that's the time for the live, knowing this happens on a Friday, as many of you who book in to see me on a Friday do, knowing there's some structure to that day, it can, to a degree, silence the noise. Okay? This idea that a river without banks is a flood. You can have so much of one thing. I'm just going to have a day off today and I'm just going to do nothing. But as you know, there's a limit to how much nothing. And then suddenly this comfort overtakes your command and you're all at sea. You can have too much of any one thing. So temperance is all about that. And of course, when we experience emotions, because that's what we're doing, the emotions are happening to us, but they are not us, okay? When we're experiencing emotions, they're distracting. And the mistake we often make is, I feel like this, therefore. And we change the structure. We change what we're doing because of the emotion. And what I've come to understand as a Stoic is structure rules. Okay? Emotion is a seducer of the weak. It's seducing us into doing X, Y, or Z. And we have to stick to our structure. Not obviously you have time off, but that's part of the structure. This idea that it's just a never-ending sea of nothing is actually really detrimental to our well-being. Okay, so what we're doing is we're understanding emotions riding on the breeze. That's what it's doing. If we're allowing the breeze to fill our sails, it's going to take us wherever it wants. And Stoicism is saying, you know what? I acknowledge there's a breeze. I acknowledge the emotion. I understand that. And I know it's natural that I'm going to feel like that. And that's great. How can I use that? If you're angry, if you're furious, how can I use that to fuel my fire? Not, I am angry. That is the sum total of who I am at this time. But I experience anger. How am I going to use that? I experience sorrow, deep sorrow. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to let that sorrow go in private, if I can, if not with people I trust. And then I am going to draw a line under it. And if I feel sorrow tomorrow, I feel sorrow tomorrow. But I am experiencing that. It is not me. The sorrow is not me. I am experiencing it. It is separate from me. It is an emotion I am experiencing. The same with fear. So again, to go back to the question where Kaylee's saying, well, I don't really want to go and keep having these conversations, being held to account every 5 minutes, my movements, my actions. And what I'm saying is, well, you've got this structure. Make sure you're still working on that structure, on your own goals. But these external forces, these questions that to you feel intrusive, manage those, okay? And manage your fear when they're going to come up. Understand that you are going to have those conversations because people who care about you are going to ask those questions. And prepare. But don't let that fear be completely controlling you when those conversations are coming up. Understand that it's just emotion that's happening to you. And if you prepare, okay, and you understand. So I often say if something awful's about to happen, I often say, right, live the moment before it happens. Actually dive into that and experience that fear. Taste it, feel it before it happens so you're prepared. And then when you acknowledge that the fear is coming, you say, I recognise that. Yeah, I'm scared, but guess what? I've prepared for this. I know what to do. Much of life you can prepare for. There are always going to be those situations where someone catches you unawares. Okay, and that is when you really hunker down and you close your citadel, you close the doors tight. And if you don't want to say anything, don't say anything. Do not respond. Who says you have to respond? So to go back to the Bluestockings, what the Bluestockings did was they said, well, you know what? We're some of the first women. Women's voices have been silenced, erased from history for centuries. And guess what? We are going to document our ideas. We're going to open up the idea that actually we might buy into this Stoicism too. And we are going to empower women to have some kind of control. And what's happened is the literature is there. We've got the Brontes, we've got the Austens, we've got, the Edwardian writers, some fantastic works here. And it's all in narrative form. And what I'm doing here is breaking that down so that we can use that in 21st century society as women. Okay, so this is what we're doing. We are making baby steps and we are moving forward all the time. And we are using our knowledge of literature when we listen to, obviously, the audio books. We hear these voices from beyond the grave now, of course. We hear the voices of the women. Essentially, when you are writing a story, you are putting your own experiences into that protagonist. So we are using those voices as though they are direct communication from centuries before us, and we are saying, right, okay, that's our guide. I hope that makes sense. I know I go a bit all over the place in my live. So I'm going to go back to my live screen now. And I'm just going to go through your comments. Man's search for meaning